In today's video, I'm going to tell you about one of the most complex and dangerous urban operations I've ever been part of. A nighttime mission in Iraq that was supposed to be a quick, silent strike, but turned into a nightmare when our intelligence was compromised just minutes before execution. Don't click away from this video because I'm going to share every detail of Operation Blackout Protocol, a mission that tested everything I learned in my 25 years of service. Every day on this channel, we bring you real military operation stories that I personally lived through during my quarter century in the US Army. I'm Steve Harris, former Sergeant Major, and today's story will show you how quickly things can go sideways in urban warfare, and how split-second decisions can mean the difference between mission success and catastrophe. Before we dive into this story, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel reach more people who appreciate real military stories. Subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a new operation story. And drop a comment below telling me what kind of mission you'd like to hear about next. Also, check out all the gear and products I personally use and recommend. You'll find everything linked in the description or pinned in the first comment. Now let me take you back to 2016, to a dusty Iraqi city whose name I still can't mention for security reasons. The target was Abu Qasim, a high-value individual who'd been funneling millions of dollars to ISIS cells across the region. This wasn't just some mid-level operative. This guy was the financial backbone of terrorist operations that had claimed hundreds of innocent lives across Europe and the Middle East. The intelligence on Abu Qasim had been months in the making. Our sources indicated he was operating out of a 3-story building in the old quarter of the city, using a network of tunnels and safe houses that made him nearly impossible to track. What made this operation particularly challenging was the urban environment: narrow streets, densely packed buildings, and worst of all, civilian families living right on top of our target location. When you're planning an urban operation, everything changes. In the mountains of Afghanistan or the deserts of Iraq, you have room to maneuver, clear fields of fire, and usually minimal civilian concerns. But in a city, every window could hide a sniper, every alley could be a kill zone, and every mistake could result in innocent blood on your hands. That weight, the responsibility for civilian lives, it never leaves you, even years after you've hung up the uniform. Our team for Blackout Protocol consisted of 12 operators from different specialties. We had Martinez, our breacher, a guy who could open any door known to man, whether it was locked, barricaded, or booby-trapped. Johnson was our communications specialist, keeping us linked to command and coordinating with our overwatch positions. Thompson handled our night vision and surveillance tech, while Rodriguez was our medic. And let me tell you, having a good medic on an urban op is worth his weight in gold. The planning phase took 3 weeks. We studied satellite imagery, drone footage, and human intelligence reports until we knew every brick of that neighborhood. We identified 17 different approach routes, 12 potential extraction points, and catalogued every civilian residence within a 4-block radius. The building layouts, the typical traffic patterns, even which families had small children who might cry if startled, all of it went into our mission folder. But here's something civilians don't understand about military operations. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. You can plan for months, study every possible scenario, but the moment boots hit the ground, everything changes. That's why we train so hard on adaptability, on making split-second decisions when the original plan goes out the window. Our primary insertion route would take us through a market district that was typically quiet after midnight. Secondary routes included rooftop access from an adjacent building, and if everything went to hell, a direct assault through the front entrance. Though that was absolutely the last resort given the civilian density. The technology we had at our disposal was state-of-the-art for 2016. Thermal imaging, advanced night vision, encrypted communications, and real-time drone support. Each operator carried specialized urban warfare equipment, door charges calibrated to minimize structural damage, non-lethal options for crowd control, and medical supplies designed for confined space casualties. Abu Qasim's routine, according to our intelligence, was predictable. He typically returned to the safe house around 11 p.m., conducted business until approximately 2 a.m., then moved to a different location before dawn. Our window of opportunity was narrow. We needed to hit the building during that 3-hour time frame when we could be confident he was inside. The psychological preparation for an urban operation is different from anything else in military service. In conventional warfare, your enemies wear uniforms, carry weapons openly, and follow at least some rules of engagement. In urban counter-terrorism, the guy selling fruit on the corner could be spotting for enemy forces. The woman hanging laundry could be signaling your position, and that kid playing in the street might be carrying a message for terrorist cells. You have to develop what we call urban awareness, the ability to process dozens of variables simultaneously while maintaining operational focus. Is that car parked in the same spot as yesterday? Why is that window open when all the others are closed? Who's that guy on the phone, and why does he keep looking in our direction? These aren't paranoid thoughts, they're survival skills in an environment where complacency kills. 3 days before the operation, we received additional intelligence that changed everything. Abu Qasim wasn't just a financier, he was also a bomb maker, and the safe house was likely rigged with explosive devices. This meant we couldn't use our standard breaching techniques, couldn't rely on flashbangs for room clearing, and had to assume that every door, window, and staircase could be booby-trapped. The team dynamic is crucial in operations like this. You're not just soldiers working together, you're a family unit where each person's life depends on every other person doing their job perfectly. Martinez knew exactly how much explosive to use without bringing down the building. Johnson could coordinate air support, ground units, and command simultaneously while under fire. Thompson could spot threats in complete darkness from 2 blocks away. These weren't just skills, they were art forms perfected through years of training and real-world experience. Personal equipment for urban operations is a careful balance between mobility and firepower. You need to be fast and quiet, but you also need to be ready for sustained combat if things go bad. My loadout included a suppressed M4 carbine with thermal optics, sidearm, breaching tools, medical kit, communications gear, and enough ammunition for extended engagement. The total weight was around 60 pounds. Not much by military standards, but every ounce matters when you're moving through narrow spaces and climbing stairs in full darkness. The night before blackout protocol, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't fear. After 25 years, you learn to manage that emotion. It was the responsibility. 12 operators depending on my leadership decisions, countless civilians in the operational area, and the knowledge that Abu Qasim's continued freedom meant more terrorist attacks, more innocent deaths. The weight of command in operations like this is something that stays with you long after you retire. We conducted final equipment checks at 1900 hours. Every piece of gear was tested, backup systems verified, and contingency plans reviewed one last time. The ammunition was loaded, suppressors attached, and night vision systems calibrated. Medical supplies were distributed across the team so that no single casualty could compromise our life-saving capabilities. Intelligence briefings continued right up until insertion time. Our sources confirmed Abu Qasim's presence in the target building, but there were concerning reports about increased security measures. Additional personnel had been spotted around the safe house, and there were indications that our target might be planning to move locations earlier than usual. The helicopter insertion was scheduled for 2300 hours at a landing zone approximately 2 kilometers from the target building. From there, we would move on foot through the urban terrain, establish overwatch positions, and execute the capture operation. Extraction was planned for 0400 hours at an alternate LZ, giving us a 5-hour operational window. Weather conditions were nearly perfect. Clear skies, minimal wind, and a new moon providing maximum darkness for concealment. Temperature was moderate, which was crucial for our thermal imaging systems and operator endurance during what could be an extended engagement. The psychological profile of Abu Qasem indicated he was unlikely to surrender quietly. This wasn't a white-collar criminal who would fold under pressure. This was a hardened terrorist who had survived multiple coalition raids and had a reputation for fighting to the death rather than face capture. We prepared for the worst-case scenario while hoping for a clean, quiet takedown. As we loaded into the helicopters, each operator was carrying not just equipment, but the weight of responsibility for this mission's success. Martinez checked his breaching charges one final time. Johnson tested his communications one last time. Thompson adjusted his night vision one last time. These rituals might seem obsessive to civilians, but in our world, that one last time could mean the difference between coming home or coming home in a flag-draped coffin. The helicopter ride to the insertion point was 23 minutes of tense silence. You could feel the focus in the aircraft. 12 operators mentally rehearsing their roles, visualizing the operation, preparing for every possible contingency. This is what separates special operations from regular infantry, the ability to maintain perfect clarity and decision-making capability under extreme stress. But you know what? In just a few minutes, you're going to understand why this mission became one of the most challenging of my entire career, and how a single compromised piece of intelligence nearly cost us everything. The insertion went flawlessly. We fast-roped from the Blackhawks into a small courtyard that provided concealment from the surrounding buildings. The helicopters disappeared into the night, leaving us alone in hostile territory with nothing but our training, our equipment, and each other to depend on. The silence after helicopter departure is always profound. Suddenly, you're committed to the mission with no immediate backup. Urban navigation at night requires skills that can't be taught in a classroom. You move from shadow to shadow, using building corners for concealment, avoiding areas where ambient light might silhouette your position. Every step is calculated, every movement deliberate. The sound of boot on pavement can carry for blocks in the quiet night air. Our approach route took us through a maze of narrow alleys and residential streets. The smell of cooking spices mixed with diesel fumes and dust created the distinctive urban warfare environment that every operator knows. Dogs barked occasionally in the distance, and the faint sound of television sets leaked from apartment windows. Normal city life continuing while we moved through their world like ghosts. Martinez took point, leading us through the predetermined route with the confidence of someone who had studied every inch of this terrain. His movements were fluid and silent, each pause calculated to listen for threats or changes in the environment. Behind him, the team moved in tactical formation, maintaining visual contact while providing overlapping fields of fire. The first indication that something was wrong came when Thompson, monitoring his surveillance equipment, detected movement patterns that didn't match our intelligence reports. There were too many people still awake in the target area, too much activity for the late hour. But we were committed now. Turning back wasn't an option, with Abu Qasem potentially planning to move locations. Johnson established communication with our overwatch positions. Sniper teams positioned on rooftops with clear sightlines to the target building. Their reports confirmed what Thompson had observed, unusual activity around the safe house, including what appeared to be additional security personnel who weren't accounted for in our original planning. The urban environment played tricks with sound and shadow. A cat jumping from a fire escape sounded like footsteps. Window shutters creaking in the breeze could mask the sound of weapon preparation. Every operator's senses were hyper-tuned, processing dozens of inputs simultaneously while maintaining operational focus. As we approached the final waypoint before the target building, Rodriguez noticed something that made my blood run cold. Fresh tire tracks in an alley that should have been empty, leading directly away from our objective. Someone had left the area recently, but was it Abu Qasem making an early departure, or was it additional security arriving to reinforce his position? The answer to that question would determine whether we were walking into a successful capture operation or a carefully prepared ambush. The fresh tire tracks were still warm. Martinez knelt down and ran his gloved fingers along the tread marks, then looked up at me with that expression every team leader dreads, the look that says our carefully planned operation just became a lot more complicated. In urban warfare, fresh evidence of unexpected activity usually means one of two things: either your target has fled or you're walking into a trap. I signaled for the team to take defensive positions while we assessed the situation. Johnson immediately began cycling through communication frequencies, trying to establish contact with our intelligence sources for real-time updates. Thompson expanded his surveillance sweep, using thermal imaging to scan surrounding buildings for heat signatures that might indicate hostile observation posts. The building that housed our target stood 3 stories tall, typical Middle Eastern urban architecture with flat rooftops and narrow windows. What concerned me most was the complete absence of lights in any of the windows. Our intelligence had indicated that Abu Qasem typically worked late into the night, with at least some illumination visible. Either he had changed his operational security procedures, or we were looking at an empty building. Rodriguez moved to my position and whispered the words every operator hopes never to hear. "Sarge, something's not right. Look at the power lines." Following his gaze, I could see that the electrical connections to the target building had been recently disturbed. Fresh copper wire was visible where connections had been spliced, a common technique for rigging buildings with improvised explosive devices. The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. We had committed to an operation based on intelligence that was possibly compromised. We were in hostile territory with limited backup options, and now we were facing the possibility that our target location was either empty or booby-trapped. But here's the thing about special operations. You don't abort a mission just because it gets difficult. You adapt, you overcome, and you complete the objective. I made the decision to split the team. Martinez and Thompson would conduct a reconnaissance of the building's exterior, looking for signs of recent explosive placement or unusual security modifications. Johnson would attempt to re-establish contact with our sources and get updated intelligence on Abu Qasem's location. Rodriguez and I would scout alternate approach routes in case we needed to modify our entry plan. Urban reconnaissance requires a completely different skill set than rural operations. In the countryside, you can observe from a distance and take your time analyzing the target. In a city, you're working within yards of potential threats, using building shadows and architectural features for concealment while trying to gather detailed intelligence about your objective. Martinez's expertise with explosives proved invaluable during the external reconnaissance. He identified 3 separate locations where the building structure had been modified recently. Door frames that showed signs of additional reinforcement, windowsills that had been altered to accommodate tripwire mechanisms, and most concerning, fresh concrete work around the building's foundation that could indicate underground explosive placement. The psychological pressure in situations like this is immense. Every operator knows that the enemy's primary advantage in urban warfare is preparation time. They know the terrain better than you do, they've had time to set up defensive positions, and they can choose the time and place for engagement. Our advantage was training, equipment, and the element of surprise. But if our intelligence was compromised, we might have already lost that crucial element. Thompson's thermal imaging revealed something that changed our entire tactical assessment. There were heat signatures in the target building, not the single signature we expected from Abu Qasem, but multiple signatures indicating at least 6 individuals inside. Either our target had called a meeting, or we were looking at a defensive force that was expecting our arrival. Johnson's attempts to re-establish contact with our intelligence sources were unsuccessful. In the world of special operations, communication blackouts can mean several things: technical failure, source compromise, or deliberate signal jamming by hostile forces. None of these possibilities were good news for our mission. The decision point had arrived. We could abort the mission and return to base with no actionable results, potentially allowing Abu Qasem to escape and continue his terrorist financing operations. Or we could adapt our plan to the new intelligence and attempt to complete the mission despite the increased risks. After 25 years of military service, I had learned that the hardest decisions are often the most important ones. I gathered the team for a quick tactical conference. In special operations, every voice matters when it comes to mission planning. Martinez believed the building modifications were designed to channel attacking forces into predetermined kill zones. Thompson's analysis suggested that the multiple heat signatures could indicate either a meeting in progress or a prepared defensive position. Rodriguez was concerned about civilian casualties if we proceeded with a direct assault on a potentially explosive rigged building. The revised plan would require us to approach the building from an unexpected direction, using an adjacent structure to gain elevation and observe the target location before committing to entry. This approach would take longer and expose us to additional risks, but it would also give us better intelligence about what we were actually facing inside the building. Urban climbing in full combat gear is an art form that requires years of practice. Moving silently across rooftops, scaling walls without creating noise, and maintaining tactical awareness while navigating unfamiliar building layouts, these skills separate elite operators from conventional forces. Every movement has to be calculated for both stealth and speed. The adjacent building was a 4-story residential structure with external fire escapes that provided access to the upper levels. Martinez led the climb, testing each step for structural stability and noise before committing his full weight. Behind him, the team followed in single file, maintaining visual contact while preparing for immediate defensive action if we were discovered. From the rooftop of the adjacent building, we had a clear view into the target structure. Thompson's advanced optics revealed details that changed our understanding of the situation completely. The multiple heat signatures weren't random. They were positioned in classic defensive formations around the building's interior. Abu Qasem wasn't just in the building. He was waiting for us with a prepared defensive force. The realization that we were expected fundamentally altered the mission parameters. This was no longer a simple capture operation. It was a direct assault against a fortified position with unknown numbers of enemy combatants, potential explosive devices, and civilian populations in the surrounding area. Every operator understood that the mission had just become exponentially more dangerous. Johnson finally re-established communication with our command structure, and the news wasn't good. Our primary intelligence source had been compromised approximately 30 minutes before our insertion. Someone had betrayed the operation, giving Abu Qasem enough time to prepare a reception for our arrival. The question now was whether we had enough tactical advantage to overcome a prepared defense. Command gave us the option to abort, but also emphasized the strategic importance of the target. Abu Qasem's financing network had been linked to recent terrorist attacks in European cities, and intelligence suggested he was planning to move significant funding to sleeper cells within the next 48 hours. If we didn't capture him tonight, innocent lives would be lost in future attacks. The weight of that responsibility, knowing that our decision could directly impact civilian casualties in other parts of the world, is something that stays with you long after the mission ends. It's not just about completing an operation, it's about preventing future tragedies that might result from your failure to act. I made the call to proceed with a modified assault plan. Instead of attempting stealth infiltration, we would use the element of surprise in a different way. Martinez would create diversionary explosions on the building's east side, drawing defensive attention away from our primary entry point on the west side. Thompson would provide overwatch and target identification from our elevated position. Johnson would coordinate with air support for potential extraction if the situation deteriorated beyond our control. The preparation for urban assault is methodical and precise. Every piece of equipment is checked one final time, ammunition is redistributed to ensure each operator has maximum firepower, and backup communication procedures are established in case primary systems fail. Medical supplies are positioned for quick access, and each team member confirms their understanding of the modified plan. Rodriguez prepared his medical kit for what would likely be casualty treatment under fire. In urban warfare, wounded operators often can't be immediately evacuated to safe areas, which means combat medics have to provide life-saving treatment while still engaged with enemy forces. It's one of the most challenging medical environments imaginable. The psychological preparation for assault operations involves a mental transition that's difficult to explain to civilians. You shift from reconnaissance mode, cautious, analytical, information gathering, to assault mode, aggressive, decisive, action-oriented. Your mind processes threats differently, your reaction times accelerate, and your focus narrows to the immediate tactical situation. But before I continue this story, I want to recommend something that's been making a real difference in my life. You know, as you get older, you start noticing things. Maybe some fatigue, lack of energy, and honestly, not having the same firm, long-lasting performance that you used to have. I started using a product that completely changed my situation, and I'm talking about real results here. I've left the link in the description of this video, or in the first comment that's pinned. Now let's get back to our story. Martinez positioned his diversionary charges on the eastern wall of the target building, using shaped explosives designed to create maximum noise and flash while minimizing structural damage that could harm civilians in adjacent buildings. The timing would be critical. We needed enough distraction to cover our assault, but not so much destruction that we brought down the building with Abu Qasem inside. Thompson established overwatch position with clear fields of fire, covering our entry points and potential escape routes. His role would be crucial in identifying threats and providing precision fire support if our assault team encountered resistance. Urban overwatch is particularly challenging because of limited sight lines and the constant risk of civilian interference. The final equipment check revealed a concerning discovery. Johnson's primary communication system was showing intermittent failures, possibly due to electronic countermeasures being employed by the enemy force. This meant we would be operating with reduced coordination capabilities during the most critical phase of the operation. As we prepared for assault, I reflected on the countless training exercises that had prepared us for this moment. Urban warfare training at Fort Bragg, hostage rescue scenarios in Virginia, and real-world operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. All of it had led to this single moment when training would become life-or-death reality. The urban environment at night creates unique challenges for assault operations. Shadows can hide enemy positions. Ambient noise can mask the sound of movement, and the close proximity of buildings means that any engagement could quickly develop into a complex, multi-directional firefight. Every operator had to be prepared for threats from any direction. Abu Qasem's reputation as a bomb maker added another layer of complexity to our assault planning. We had to assume that every door, every staircase, and every room could be rigged with explosive devices designed to kill or maim anyone attempting entry. This meant our movement would be slower and more methodical than standard assault procedures. The silence before an assault operation is profound. 12 highly trained operators, each focused on their specific role, each carrying the weight of mission responsibility, each knowing that the next few minutes would determine success or failure. You can hear your own heartbeat, feel the weight of your equipment, and sense the collective tension of the entire team. Martinez gave the signal, 30 seconds to diversionary explosion. Thompson confirmed clear fields of fire from Overwatch position. Johnson tested backup communication procedures one final time. Rodriguez positioned himself for immediate casualty response. Every piece of the tactical puzzle was in place for what would become one of the most intense urban firefights of my military career. But here's what I couldn't have predicted at that moment. In less than 2 minutes, everything we thought we knew about this operation would change completely, and we'd find ourselves facing a situation that no amount of training could have fully prepared us for. The diversionary explosion lit up the night like a miniature sun. Martinez's charges detonated exactly as planned, creating a massive flash and thunderous noise that echoed through the narrow streets. Windows shattered in adjacent buildings. Car alarms began wailing, and for a brief moment, the entire neighborhood was illuminated in brilliant orange light. But what happened next changed everything we thought we knew about this operation. Instead of drawing defensive fire toward the explosion site, the building went completely silent. No muzzle flashes, no return fire, no sounds of movement or defensive positioning. Through Thompson's thermal imaging, we watched as the heat signatures inside the building began moving in a coordinated pattern that didn't match defensive behavior. They were evacuating through what appeared to be an underground tunnel system that our intelligence had never identified. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a defensive position waiting for our assault. It was an elaborate trap designed to waste our time while Abu Qasem escaped through a route we didn't even know existed. Our carefully planned operation was being played like a chess game, and we were several moves behind an enemy who had anticipated our every action. Johnson's communication equipment suddenly came alive with frantic transmissions from our command post. Intelligence sources were reporting massive movement throughout the city, not just at our target location, but at multiple sites across the urban area. Abu Qasem hadn't just prepared for our raid, he had used it as cover for a much larger operation that was now unfolding across the entire region. I made the hardest decision of my military career. Instead of pursuing a target who was already gone, we needed to shift our focus to preventing whatever secondary operation was now in motion. Martinez and Rodriguez would secure the abandoned building and search for intelligence about the tunnel system. Thompson would maintain Overwatch, while Johnson coordinated with command to identify the new threats. And I would lead a rapid response team to intercept Abu Qasem's most likely escape route. Urban pursuit in hostile territory requires skills that go beyond standard military training. You're chasing a target who knows the terrain better than you do, through streets and alleys that could hide dozens of ambush positions, while trying to avoid civilian casualties and maintain tactical coordination with your scattered team. Every decision has to be made in seconds, and every mistake could be fatal. The intelligence we found in the abandoned building was both valuable and terrifying. Abu Qasem hadn't just been financing terrorist operations. He had been coordinating a network of cells across 3 different countries, and our raid had triggered the activation of sleeper agents who were now moving toward predetermined targets throughout the Middle East and Europe. Thompson's thermal imaging identified movement patterns in the tunnel system that suggested multiple escape routes leading to different sectors of the city. This wasn't just an individual escape plan, it was a comprehensive evacuation protocol that indicated months of preparation and detailed knowledge of our operational capabilities. The psychological impact of realizing you've been outmaneuvered by your enemy is devastating. Every operator trains for equipment failure, casualty situations, and tactical complications, but discovering that your entire mission has been anticipated and countered requires a level of mental adaptation that pushes even elite soldiers to their limits. Command informed us that intercepted communications indicated Abu Qasem was attempting to reach a helicopter extraction point approximately 6 kilometers from our current position. The route would take him through a market district, across 2 major roadways, and through a residential area where civilian density made direct assault extremely risky. Rodriguez made a critical discovery in the building's basement. Detailed maps of the city showing not just the tunnel system, but also marked locations that corresponded to known terrorist cell safe houses. This intelligence was potentially more valuable than capturing Abu Qasem himself, as it could lead to the dismantling of the entire financial network he had spent years constructing. The decision to split our focus between pursuit and intelligence gathering required careful risk assessment. Pursuing Abu Qasem offered the possibility of capturing a high-value target, but securing the intelligence materials could prevent future terrorist attacks across multiple countries. In special operations, you often face choices where every option carries significant consequences. Martinez's expertise with explosive devices proved crucial when we discovered that the tunnel system was rigged with demolition charges designed to collapse the entire network if triggered. Disarming the system required precise technical knowledge and steady hands while working under extreme time pressure, knowing that a single mistake could bring down several city blocks. The pursuit team moved through the urban landscape using techniques developed through years of combat experience in Iraq and Afghanistan. Leapfrogging between concealment positions, using building shadows to mask movement, and maintaining constant communication with overwatch positions while navigating unfamiliar terrain in complete darkness. Thompson's overwatch position provided critical intelligence about enemy movement patterns throughout the city. His thermal imaging revealed that our target wasn't traveling alone. Abu Qasem was moving, with a security detail of at least 4 additional personnel, all armed and clearly trained in counter-surveillance techniques. The psychological pressure of urban pursuit operations is unlike anything else in military service. You're operating in an environment where every civilian could be a potential threat. Every building could hide enemy positions, and every decision could result in international incidents if civilian casualties occur. The rules of engagement in urban warfare are complex and unforgiving. Johnson's communication with air support revealed that helicopter assets were available for extraction, but the urban environment and civilian population density made close air support extremely limited. We would be operating with minimal backup in hostile territory, relying primarily on our training and equipment to complete the mission. The market district presented unique challenges for tactical movement. During the day, it would be crowded with vendors and shoppers, but at night, it became a maze of empty stalls, temporary structures, and perfect ambush positions. Every shadow could hide a threat, and every sound could indicate enemy movement or innocent civilian activity. Abu Qasem's route through the city demonstrated sophisticated knowledge of coalition tactics and operational procedures. He avoided areas where our forces typically established checkpoints, used terrain features that complicated surveillance operations, and timed his movement to take advantage of shift changes in our patrol schedules. The residential area where our pursuit culminated presented the most challenging tactical environment possible. Dense civilian population, complex building layouts, multiple escape routes, and the constant risk of innocent casualties made every decision potentially catastrophic. This is where urban warfare reveals its true complexity. Rodriguez's medical expertise became crucial when we encountered wounded civilians who had been caught in crossfire between Abu Qasem's security detail and coalition patrol units. Providing medical aid while maintaining pursuit operations required splitting attention between humanitarian concerns and tactical objectives. The final confrontation occurred in a three-story apartment building where Abu Qasim had taken defensive positions with his security team. The building contained at least 30 civilian residents, including families with small children, making direct assault virtually impossible without risking massive casualties. Thompson's precision shooting skills proved decisive in neutralizing enemy threats while avoiding civilian harm. Urban marksmanship requires exceptional skill because of limited sight lines, complex ballistics calculations with multiple deflection possibilities, and the constant risk of over-penetration affecting innocent people in adjacent rooms. The tactical situation required innovative solutions that weren't covered in standard operating procedures, using non-lethal crowd control techniques to evacuate civilians, coordinating with local law enforcement to establish perimeter security, and employing specialized urban warfare equipment to isolate enemy positions without structural damage to the building. Abu Qasim's final stand demonstrated why he had evaded capture for so long. His tactical knowledge, preparation, and willingness to use civilian shields made him an extremely dangerous opponent. But it also revealed the weakness that ultimately led to his downfall: his overconfidence in his ability to outmaneuver coalition forces. The capture itself was anticlimactic after hours of intense pursuit and tactical maneuvering. Faced with overwhelming force and no remaining escape options, Abu Qasim surrendered rather than risk the lives of civilian hostages. Sometimes the most dangerous enemies make the most rational decisions when faced with inevitable defeat. What do you think happened in those final moments when we had Abu Qasim cornered with nowhere left to run? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts on how this operation concluded. The intelligence recovered from the tunnel system and Abu Qasim's personal effects led to the identification and capture of 17 additional terrorist operatives across 4 different countries. The financial network he had spent years constructing was completely dismantled, preventing an estimated 12 planned terrorist attacks and saving countless innocent lives. The psychological aftermath of operations like Blackout Protocol affects every operator differently. The adrenaline, the life or death decisions, the responsibility for civilian safety, and the knowledge that your actions directly impact global security, these experiences become part of who you are long after you leave military service. Rodriguez received a commendation for his medical treatment of wounded civilians during the operation. His ability to provide life-saving care while maintaining tactical awareness exemplified the professionalism and humanitarian values that define elite military units. Combat medics are truly the unsung heroes of special operations. Martinez's expertise with explosive devices prevented what could have been a catastrophic collapse of the tunnel system that would have killed dozens of innocent civilians living above the underground network. His technical skills and calm decision-making under pressure saved lives and preserved critical intelligence materials. Thompson's precision marksmanship and surveillance capabilities were crucial throughout the operation. From initial reconnaissance to final assault, his ability to identify threats and provide accurate fire support while avoiding civilian casualties demonstrated the highest levels of professional military competence. Johnson's communication skills kept our scattered team coordinated throughout a complex, rapidly evolving operation. His ability to maintain contact with command, coordinate air support, and adapt to equipment failures ensured that we could respond effectively to changing tactical situations. The lessons learned from Blackout Protocol influenced urban warfare training for years afterward. The operation demonstrated the importance of flexible planning, the need for multiple contingency options, and the critical value of intelligence preparation for urban environments. Every detail became part of the institutional knowledge that prepares future operators for similar challenges. The civilian population's cooperation during the operation was remarkable. Despite the danger and confusion, residents followed evacuation instructions, provided information about enemy movement, and assisted with medical care for wounded individuals. Their courage and civic responsibility contributed significantly to the mission's ultimate success. Abu Qasem's interrogation revealed details about terrorist financing networks that had previously been unknown to intelligence services. His cooperation, motivated by plea agreement negotiations, led to the disruption of funding sources for terrorist organizations across the Middle East and North Africa. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you're always informed when I post new videos about military operations. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it interesting, and let me know in the comments what you thought about this story. Also, don't forget to check out all the products I personally recommend. You'll find everything in the description below or in the first pinned comment. The long-term impact of Operation Blackout Protocol extended far beyond the immediate tactical success. The intelligence gathered during the mission provided insights into terrorist operational methods that informed counter-terrorism strategies for years afterward. Sometimes a single operation can have effects that ripple through the entire intelligence community. The personal relationships forged during intense operations like this create bonds that last a lifetime. Martinez, Rodriguez, Thompson, Johnson, and the rest of the team, we remained close friends long after leaving military service. When you've shared life or death experiences, when you've depended on each other for survival, those connections transcend normal friendship. The weight of command decisions made during Blackout Protocol stayed with me throughout my remaining years in service and into retirement. Every choice had consequences that affected not just my team, but civilian populations, international relations, and global security. That responsibility never truly leaves you. Urban warfare continues to evolve as terrorist organizations adapt their tactics and operational methods. The lessons learned from operations like Blackout Protocol help prepare future generations of military personnel for the complex challenges they'll face in an increasingly urbanized world where the line between combatant and civilian is often unclear. The equipment and technology available to Special Operations Forces has advanced significantly since 2016, but the fundamental challenges of urban warfare remain constant. Human judgment, tactical flexibility, and the ability to make split-second decisions under extreme pressure. These elements of military operations cannot be replaced by technology. Abu Qasem's terrorist financing network was completely dismantled within 6 months of his capture. The financial intelligence gathered during Blackout Protocol enabled law enforcement agencies across multiple countries to freeze assets, identify accomplices, and prevent planned attacks that could have killed hundreds of innocent people. The recognition our team received for Operation Blackout Protocol was gratifying, but the real satisfaction came from knowing that our actions had prevented future terrorist attacks. In special operations, success is often measured not by what happens, but by what doesn't happen. The attacks that never occur, the lives that are saved, the tragedies that are prevented. Looking back on 25 years of military service, Operation Blackout Protocol stands out as an example of how quickly situations can change in urban warfare, how important tactical flexibility becomes when original plans fail, and how individual operator skills and team coordination can overcome seemingly impossible challenges. The story of Blackout Protocol isn't just about one night in Iraq. It's about the dedication, professionalism, and sacrifice of military personnel who operate in the shadows to protect innocent people around the world. These men and women rarely receive public recognition, but their contributions to global security are immeasurable. Every operation teaches lessons that make future missions more successful and safer for the operators involved. Blackout Protocol reinforced the importance of intelligence preparation, tactical flexibility, and maintaining focus on mission objectives even when faced with unexpected complications and enemy countermeasures. The courage displayed by every member of our team during Operation Blackout Protocol exemplified the finest traditions of military service. Their willingness to risk their lives for the protection of others, their ability to perform under extreme pressure, and their commitment to mission success regardless of personal cost. These qualities define what it means to serve in special operations. That's the story of Operation Blackout Protocol, a mission that started as a simple capture operation and evolved into a complex urban warfare scenario that tested every skill we had developed during years of military training and real-world experience. It's a reminder that in special operations, no mission is ever routine, and success depends on the courage, skill, and dedication of the operators who volunteer to face danger so that others can sleep safely. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where I'll share another story from my 25 years of military service. Stay safe, and remember, freedom isn't free, and it's protected by people willing to pay the price for others.